For starters, could you maybe give us a comment about what you think or reflection on the manifesto?
Let me start by saying that it is a great pleasure to speak with you, and maybe a number of others in this call. It is a pleasure for many reasons, but I think what unites us is that we all see the tremendous value of the UN, and more broadly the necessity and the obligation for international cooperation to work towards maintaining peace and security, and ultimately to guarantee stability. And we all know that these are tremendously challenging times. None of us could have foreseen that we would actually have this encounter in these circumstances only 8, 9 months ago. The world has completely changed, and and the watershed moment of February 24th affects us all. There are a couple of things that I very much like in the manifesto, the report, as whatever you prefer to call it, and I'll make a couple of comments. But maybe the most important thing to me is the fact that you actually have put it together, that it is there, and that the next generation actually voices what it thinks about how the world should evolve. I think there is probably most of the meaning is in that in itself, because I do feel that your generation should be listened to, and should also make sure that it is being heard. Then, in terms of the things that struck me in particular, maybe a couple of comments linked to my overall message would be youth participation and engagement, making sure that all generations take part in all the discussions that are relevant. And I can vividly recall my grandmother, who always said, when we were discussing political topics, who said, "Well, I may vote, but actually it's much more important for you, because ideally you manage to stay a lot longer on this earth than I do." So I think there is a clear logic in doing that. Secondly, and that is really a topic that will stay with your generation much more than with the older generations, is disinformation. That as a topic, it wasn't there when I was your age. Yes, we learned a little bit in class about, propaganda, but that was then always related to either Nazi Germany or to communism in the Soviet Union. And disinformation, I also see that with my own kids, in calibrating whether things are real or not, and the whole struggle for the narrative and making sure people young and old get the right information. I think it is spot on. The third, and that is very much linked to your generation, but it is actually there, I think, for all generations, is education. I'm a big believer and an advocate of education, particularly to the young. But I do believe in continuous learning. So I think the appeal should actually be towards all generations. And then finally, and that is close to my heart as a foreign minister, is cross-border cooperation, and making sure, we don't invent the wheel or anything that vaguely resembles the wheel one-on-one, but we do make sure that we do it, as is a tradition in the Netherlands, with as many friends as possible.
What were the 5 most important words that you got when you read the CGA 2022 manifesto?
I've actually elucidated more or less on them, on these words by mentioning them. So youth participation and engagement, disinformation, education, cross-border cooperation. Those are the things that are the concepts and the words that struck me most. And if you carefully count, then you might say, well, that's actually 4 words. But I don't think I need a 5th word. I was tremendously impressed by the manifesto. And again, by the fact that you guys and girls are putting this together. That is something you shouldn't underestimate. The fact that we are having this conversation, that you are putting this on the table of policymakers, hopefully across the globe, and have conversations about it, is actually much more important than the last bit of detail in each of the 4 or 5 silos.
What was your formula for success to get into the government, and what advice do you have for anyone else that would try to gain a high position like yourself in any government?
My advice to young people is always, make sure you create your own path, and please don't be intimidated by who people from the outside seem to have had a successful career, because afterwards, there is a logical flow and it seems to make sense. But most people just stumble on occasions, do a couple of things well, screw up other things, learn by doing, and I think the biggest trick in life is that when you fall, you learn from it, you get up, and you move forward. I think that is, in a way, the essence of life. And I have to be honest to you guys. I did put in a fair amount of hard work, throughout my life. But I also got lucky. I got lucky by people who helped me, who coached me, who explained to me how to not screw it up again. I got lucky by the people I met, the opportunities that were there, and by mentors all across the neighborhoods where I've lived in, but also the companies and the institutions I was part of.
So we know that we could always learn from each other across generations. How would you improve young people's collaboration with government? Can you name a few ways that we can get this started? How we can get young people to inspire governments to listen up and to learn, and how can you as a minister be an ambassador for these young voices?
Overall, the most important thing is, I think, for policymakers to get in touch with society. There's always the temptation of spending 100 hours a week in the ivory towers we work in and we live in, and in our case that is in The Hague, in your case, and in the case of my dear Canadian colleague Melanie Joly, that is in Ottawa. But there's always the temptation of doing more within the ministry, and it is fully okay that we spend a tremendous amount of time on trying to work on policies and on problems, but getting out there and talking to people, understanding what happens in society, and then in particular understanding the needs and the opportunities and the thoughts of the next generation is simply very important. In the Netherlands, we, for example, have established an International Youth Advisory Committee to sort of structure this. But I don't think that such a body in itself is enough. One of the things I did when I was a finance minister, I didn't succeed every single month, but probably once in every 2 months, I went to a school class, sometimes primary school, sometimes secondary school, occasionally also people who were a bit older than that. And I gave a guest lecture. And in that specific case, it was about, how to deal with money and how to be responsible while you're making a bit of money as a youngster. But, the desires and the opportunities are always larger than the money in your purse. And by the way, that is not typically a problem that only the young have. It is an intergenerational problem. And hopefully these kids got something out of it from me being there, but I certainly learned a lot about the world they live in, and how they try to navigate, buying gasoline for their scooter and working as a pizza deliverer, and at the same time, wanting to buy interesting clothes to wear and impress their friends. So I always learned a lot from that as well, and it gave me immediate feedback on, what it is that we are doing.
That's really interesting. With this community engagement that you speak of, how do we get more ministers to be like you and be willing to have that engagement?
Sounds like a very scary thing. More ministers like me. It's I once worked at a place where they said, "Well, it is good that we have Wopke, but it's good that we do not have too many Wopkes." So I think for all policymakers, it does make sense to go out there and to meet all generations and the people within your field of expertise, but deliberately so also people outside of your own field. But the trick in life also for policymakers is to stay close to yourself and do what what makes sense for you. I think there's an analogy not only with how I try to stay in touch with people, but there's an analogy with how to shape your own career. It is good to get cues from other people and from people who are willing and able to coach you. But in the end, it is up to everyone to decide where, do I get my energy from? What is it that truly motivates me? And it is something you need to decide for yourself.
Do you see any obstacles, not with this mindset, but with learning across generations? If on this journey to like inspire, do you have any good advice to overcome these obstacles and ways to improve the implementation of services to actually get change started, to catalyze it?
Well, maybe two things. One is people are pretty often they're scared to ask for help. To ask either a fellow student to help out, but although the bar there typically is not that high, but also to ask people at work to coach them, to ask people to give a perspective, to ask people for feedback on how they did in a meeting or how they did while giving a speech. And one of my lessons in life is that most people are actually, if you ask them, they're not just willing to help, they're very keen to help. And they go to great length in helping you for the simple reason that you ask them. And sometimes you almost need to stop them in helping you and coaching you. So just asking for advice and help, and whether it is on your career or whether it is in doing your homework or whether it is whatever the topic is, I think is something I learned because it just dawned on me that people like doing it. And I think the second thing is it might sound like a paradox with the first bit, but I think it is true. Life is a lot about taking ownership and resilience, and we all, many people live in much more difficult circumstances than probably the two of you do, and certainly than I do. And I always admire people who make the most of extremely difficult circumstances. Yet at the same time, whatever the circumstances, every human life, everyone in life encounters, a fair amount of setbacks and sad news and unfortunate events and misery in family, amongst family and friends. And the big thing in life is to show resilience and to take ownership and to make the most of the opportunities and the cards that life hands to you.
Thank you. Well said.
We children all over the world want to have a safe education. To us, this is a global issue because education is a topic that needs aid all across the globe. Me being a Minister of Foreign Affairs, how can you support this topic? There are always things that can engage your international catalogs.
It's a very good question, and I think on the one hand, we as a world, and also we in Europe and in the Netherlands, and of course, are most intimately familiar with the situation here. We have covered a lot of terrain in this specific topic, and yet it is something that always needs attention. It is never finished. It is never done. I do think that if you look at society today in the Netherlands, and I think the same is true for North America and many places in Europe. Things were already not that bad when I was a kid, but they have further improved. If we look at the learning environment of my kids and the ability that they have to speak up, be themselves, and how completely okay it is that people share not only their thoughts but also their identities. I'm actually quite optimistic. But of course, still a lot of work is needed across the globe. And one of the things that I think is extremely important, it sounds like a very basic thing, but it continues to be very important, is making sure that all across the globe, it is not only boys, but also girls that are part of the classroom. Because societies that have highly educated women function a lot better and do manage to get rid of a lot of of problems that have gone on for generations, but it also immediately puts the balance right in a classroom. So it's very basic, and this is something that's, I'm glad to say, is in place in the Netherlands already for decades. But it is something the world could take additional steps in.
Is there anything else that should be improved when it comes to a safe education, a safe place for children to learn, maybe not only in the Netherlands, but also the rest of the world?
Well, that last point, I think, the more we make sure that guys and girls are together in a classroom, have exposure to not only the other sex, but also people with a different background, a different religious background, a different color of skin, a different sexual orientation, a different place, maybe geographically, or from different layers and places within society. I think that fosters understanding. It's in a way your whole life is you're meeting people that are different than yourself. In your family, you meet people who are typically somewhat like yourself, and in your wider family as well. And then in a neighborhood, you discover that actually there are also other people living in the world. And ideally, in school, the level goes up even further. I had the I had the opportunity to do an MBA at INSEAD, and I think there were 96 nationalities at that business school. And even though I'd worked and lived a lot internationally, having such an exposure to so many people, literally from all across the globe, taught me a lot about the commonalities, but also the differences. And I think it was a fantastic experience. And it fosters understanding to just see what the positions and the opinions of other people are.
For our last question, it's just something simple. One sentence that you could say that's your advice for future generations.
It is probably that you will manage, and that you should take a bit of advice of previous generations, but in the end, it is about finding your own path and deciding for yourself. And bear in mind that people my age, and particularly people older than I, if there's one thing very true, it is that in the end, they're quite jealous, because you are the future, and there is no substitute for youth.